All right. All right. Welcome to another episode of the Prosperous Man Podcast, where we are just believing for you to be prosperous in all areas of life, where prosperity is more than money. We want you to be prosperous with your family, your relationships, on your jobs, and everything that you kind of set your hands to do. So today we have special guest, Dominique Dom Brightmon. Did I say your last name right?
You got it right, my man.
Sweet. Brightman. Yes. So Dom is an award-winning speaker and certified, put that certification in there, certified member of the John Maxwell team. If you don't know John Maxwell, you've been living under a rock for a minute. So you know how legit he is if he is certified with John Maxwell. He is the best-selling author of Going North, Tips and Techniques to Advance Yourself. I think that is what I'm talking about. Also of Stay the Course and Elite Performers 7 Secret Keys to Sustainable Success. And he is contributing author for Crappy to Happy, Sacred Stories of Transformational Joy. You can follow his podcast, the Going North Podcast, and I'll put links to all of this and all of his information in the show notes. Please make yourself available to that. And uh, Dom lives by his own motto: advance others to advance yourself. So that is what I'm talking about. Let's welcome Dom Brightmore to the Prosperous Man Podcast. Dom, welcome, welcome. Thank you for joining us today and being a part of this show today.
Hey, man, I'm honored to be on there with you, man. And I'll make sure if I ever come back, hopefully my next book title won't be as long. Because I can tell what that second was like, yeah, that gets a lot of people all the time. They'd be like, man, say that 7 times fast. It's like,
Like, whew, you don't know how sensitive people are about their book titles. You'd be like, all right, okay, let me just get through. If he crack a joke, then we cool. Some people, they take
we
it
could.
seriously. They'd be like, nah, get it right. So, but I appreciate you again for just joining us today. Tell people, let's start with the interesting fact. Just kind of tell them something interesting about yourself, and I'd love to hear how you got started with the John Maxwell team and became a certified with them.
Yeah, so a little fun fact about me, something I really talk about on podcasts is that I've actually done martial arts for a few years, did Taekwondo, got up to blue belt, up to, that was back in 20, I think, 14, I think. Yeah, that was when I was
Okay.
did that for about a good 4 years, switched over to CrossFit, did that for a bit. And of course, with CrossFit, it's a little competitive, even though you try not to be. It's like when you see
Hmm.
scores on the wall, it's like, all right, I don't want to suck this bad. And you push yourself a little more and you forget form, and then you get injured. It's like, all right, well, I think I'm gonna take a little break. The world champ's gonna be off season for a bit. And that's just really a little fun fact about myself. But how I got started with the John Maxwell team, the JMT DNA, as they say once you join, is really I got started because a friend of mine, good man named Clyde Middleton out in the Baltimore area. He was with the John Maxwell team and he told me about it. Another buddy of mine told me about it, Chris Jordan. They both told me about it and what it would cost and the investment that you need and what it's done for them. And to be honest, like this is really just an addition to whatever else I'm doing because before joining JMT, I've been doing Toastmasters for years. I've won a couple of speech contests, got a couple of awards, got to the DTM level, got all the work done for that. I already had 2 books published before I officially became certified with JMT. And I've been speaking since I was a little boy in church. I grew up in church basically for basically all my life. If I
Your
wasn't in
whole
school or
life.
outside playing with family, then I was basically in church and got that little public speaking experience, reciting verses in front of the audience every Sunday, and this was back in the '90s when our church was in our heyday, where we probably had 1,000 members on paper, and our auditorium can comfortably seat up to about a good 800 people. So just getting that little advantage early on, starting on at advance, just led me to just really using the gift of public speaking, having that confidence to be able to get on stage. Like up, like funny enough, one of my colleagues at one point would be like, "Hey, you're one of the few folks that would rather give a 5 minute speech than write a 5 page paper." Cause that's me. Like 5 minute speech, I got you covered. 5 page paper, even though I got a couple books, like, nah, I'd rather do the speech than the freaking paper. So that's a little couple fun facts about me now. led me to the little JMT goodness.
Nice. Very, I mean, that's very interesting. That speaks, I think, to just so much of like our background. We a lot of things we start in church, no matter if it's the reciting the verses, the Easter verses, it's
Hmm.
we learn a lot of our mannerism. We learn how to joke and kid, like all of that happens in church. So we carry that with us. So that's awesome that you were able to just see that as a part of your background and kind of embrace that as you go forward. So that's really awesome. So tell us, as we're kind of starting here and when this airs, this is going to be at the beginning of 2021. So we're starting this new year. And I love your personal motto of advance others to advance yourself. So tell me a little bit, kind of maybe some steps or, kind of your thoughts on how going into this new year, because, a lot of people have struggled in 2020 and it's just some people have struggled and I've seen other people that have had success, but really taking what we learned in 2020 and being able to propel ourselves into 2021. So how do we advance ourselves going into this new year, kind of still in the midst of this pandemic and moving forward? What are some tips or thoughts you have about that?
Yeah, man, for 2020 is so right. The 2020 has been one heck of a year for a lot of people. Funny enough, even though there's been a lot of lives lost, I've lost some acquaintances, some family, some friends this year, some COVID, some not to, well, actually, really, none of them really to COVID, to be honest. No one in my immediate vicinity has lost their lives to COVID. However, COVID still affected everybody with these darn masks and everything. And 2020 has been one of those years where it's like, yes, it's a dark year, especially with it being election year and that whole hell of a nonsense that was going
And
on.
just, oh, that whole thing just,
Like it was one heck of a year, but in all honesty, it's actually been one of the best years of my life, to be honest, because it really pushed me to really get better and not
Mhm.
butter. Because with my podcast, Going North Podcast, Tips and Techniques to Advance Yourself, it had its best year. I basically doubled my numbers for the entirety of the show when I had over 135 authors on the show, because my motto for last year, my New Year's mantra was stay in motion. And
Mm.
even though I couldn't stay in motion physically as well virtually because of us being in lockdown and all over the world being in lockdown in these different places and having to wear masks and physically distance from one another instead of social distance, which is kind of a stupid phrase, and just really just having to really turn the pain into power and turn your calamity into a way to find more clients. Because really with 2021, like we're just hoping that 2020 wasn't the draft year and the rookie year. We're just hoping like that was the be all end all. We hope that was a Super Bowl and it's all over. We hoping this 2021 is gonna be a lot better
That
in
is such a
2020.
great analogy. Like, please don't let this be the draft class. We want 2020 to be it. Super Bowl, finals, like let that be it. We ain't trying to start a draft. I don't want 10 more years of this. That is a great analogy. I love that. Like we want this to retire. You need to go out.
Mhm. COVID needs to hibernate permanently.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah, man. But yeah, for really 2021, I'd say get yourself a New Year's mantra. That's something I've been doing since 2013. Like find a 1 to 3 word phrase to make it your year. Like stay in motion. That was 2020 for me. A couple years ago, it was Shoshin, a Japanese word for beginner's mind, where you basically see things as if you were a rookie, see your things if you're a novice, a neophyte, and try to see if you can do things differently than before. Because that year in particular, 2018, was originally going to be the year I was going to publish the second book, Stay the Course, but it didn't happen because there was a lot of imposter syndrome going on, because that was the year where my podcast got noticed by other folks on the internet and it blew up. And I was talking with all these folks, and the whole comparison gap really just stuck out to me. That's one of the gaps of life that we need to watch out for when we're trying to grow and get better, is the comparison gap. And that's a trap that we need to make sure we dodge. Like there may be some cheese with on there, and we may see ourselves as mice in a way, metaphorically
Mm.
speaking, of that's like, oh, this person's got a bunch of followers on Instagram and all these social media profiles. They got all this business and whatnot. They're doing all these things. They got a picture with a rented Lamborghini that, like, it's like, even though it's rented, like, they still have to pay to rent the darn thing. Like, oh man, why is my life so horrible? And they got all these businesses, but really just having to really just see it for what it is, like seeing social media for what it is, a curated feed of what people want you to see, and just getting over that and just realizing that, hey, this is something where maybe I just need to think this over a bit and just realize that something needs to change. So getting yourself a New Year's mantra. Also, accountability. Tell other folks about your goals for the year and making sure that you tell your goals to the right people, because one of the biggest mistakes you can make in life is telling your ideas, especially newborn ideas or your goals, to the wrong people that'll laugh at you. Because if you don't use that for fuel and you take it to heart, that's game over. But if you tell it to the right person and they have an elephant memory, then you telling it to the right person, because they're going to remind you. Like, people are going to remind you. I had a
Yeah.
good colleague who remind me of my goals, man. So those are a couple things for folks to take into 2021, where the millennium finally gets to drink some of that
Yeah.
Catholic.
Well, I think that's so awesome though. Like having the mantra, just being able to kind of change your mindset or get your mindset prepared for the upcoming year and just what you want to see in your own life. So I really, really like that. And I like just, dealing with that imposter syndrome, because I think we all, the more I do these video kind of podcasts, the more I talk to people, you know, I I'm more aware of kind of like my own like imposter syndrome. Well, like, who am I to, do a podcast or have this, or, like, not really nobody, but also nobody else has my thoughts or my opinions. So, you kind of finding your own self power in that is like, yeah, there may be other people. It's kind of like the curse of social media. There may be other people that you will see with all of the great numbers, and they're doing this and they're doing that. And kind of like you said, the rented Lamborghini and all of that sort of stuff is like, but you find your own self power in that nobody else has your voice or has your own thoughts. So, you kind of go with that, and you kind of empower yourself that way. So I'm learning that for myself even. And I think it's a continual process too. And going into this new year, and people will set habits and they'll do goals and they'll do all of these sorts of things. um what would you recommend for people, as they're wanting to kind of set these goals, set these habits for the different parts of their life? How would you recommend that they attack these? Or being in 2020, it was such an up and down year for a lot of people. How do you handle either like the imposter syndrome or that up and down of like, yeah, January starts out great and February is like, whew, what happened? So can you speak to that just a little bit, of kind of advancing through those tests, tribulation, trials, everything that is life as we kind of go through the year?
Yeah, man. One of the biggest things is to write things down, physically write things down, because when you actually put pen to paper and you're writing things down, that sticks in your memory a lot more, and subconsciously your goals will still manifest. Funny enough, I was doing some cleanup and going through some old papers, and I even found an old whiteboard that I wrote on that I misplaced when I was doing some moving. And I noticed that a couple of the goals were fulfilled, even though I consciously forgot about them, but subconsciously they still were able to be fulfilled. Like, excuse me, with four of my goals for 2020 actually happened. Like, one of the major goals of the year was to secure someone on my top 50 list of people I want to interview on my show. I was able to get Simon Bailey on my podcast this past November, and because I read
Awesome.
his book, yeah, he's a powerhouse of a speaker and communicator, and he has great books about releasing your brilliance and shifting it. And I was able to secure him. I was able to publish a book and able to get that. And I was able to get on at least a good 30 plus podcasts in 2020, because I wrote down I was going to get on 20 plus podcasts this year.
Mm.
And it was able to still happen because I still wrote them down and I found the goals later. because sometimes, like, I'm gonna be honest, like, there's the best thing to do is to always write your goals down every day, so that way it'll be a lot more fortified in your mind. But if you still write it down at least once, there's a better chance if you didn't do it at all, because then you can find those papers later, those goals you wrote down later, and then realize, wow, I've actually got some progress done. And that's the
Mhm.
biggest thing too, like progress over perfection. Like, am I where I want to be right
Yeah.
now? No, I'm not where I want to be yet. And that's the thing. Like, have the yet mindset, realize, all right, I'm going to be grateful for what I have now, celebrate a bit now, and then just keep my foot on the gas pedal and keep going forward, because that's where we are our most vulnerable, is after we get a big victory. Like,
Yeah.
since my man's a fellow Christian, like Jesus himself, after he was baptized by John the Baptist, and guys came from heaven, said, "This is my son in whom I well pleased." He went straight to the wilderness for 40 days, and those 40
Mhm.
nights dealing with all that darn temptation, like that big moment of victory, and then going right into the dang wilderness right afterwards. Like, that's the moment where you really have to be careful. So writing your goals down, always making sure you physically write them down. Also making sure you list accountability partner. That's always a great thing. Also being aware of, I guess, going back to the imposter syndrome that you also asked about, is also having the mindset to realize that this is a curated feed, and that a lot of people are putting stuff out there that you want them to know about. Like with my Facebook page, my personal page, that's for basically funny memes, business, and whatever I prefer to share with people. Like, I'm not gonna
Mhm.
journal my daily life on there, because that's
Right.
not what it's for. Because people don't need to know that, because folks are watching you. Like, they're watching you more than a Rolex on your wrist. Like, folks are watching it, and if you put stuff out there and you give them some bullets for them to fire at you later, and you're going to be pissed off at yourself down the road
Yep.
and coming back later. So don't do that to yourself. Like, keep yourself composed, focus on the future, be grateful for the present, and always focus on what you're doing. Get within yourself and focus what you're doing, because that even ties in with self leadership, because we have to lead ourselves first before we can even try to lead anybody else. Because when you're leading yourself, you're going to be leading yourself the longest and the furthest, because from the cradle to the grave, we lead ourselves the longest before
Oh,
we
that's
try to lead
good.
anybody else. Like, you come out the womb, and as a kid, you got to remember not to touch that hot stove again after you touched it the first time, or not do anything stupid that your parents told you not to do the first
Hmm.
time before you do it again, before you grow up and then life hits you right in the keister and punch you in the face. You'd be like, maybe I want to be a manager. And then you get into management and you realize, man, this is adult daycare. Send me back to my old position, man. Forget this extra 3 grand and extra taxes, man. Like, send me back, man. Like, I want to do my job and go home. I don't want to have to babysit all these people.
Right.
So be aware of yourself too. So those are just a few things for the folks to just chew on, like the cud of some magical cows. Yeah.
That's really good though. That leading yourself is, I think that's what one of the big things I've noticed just in this year in like 2020. What I noticed is this big push for, self-care, and especially in, Black and brown communities, the mental health aspect. Like, there's been a big push, but I think that all speaks to us knowing ourselves. Like, we don't spend a lot of times getting to know ourselves to be able to lead ourselves. We're always just going, 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 or, in a lot of our communities, we're doing what we have to survive, and that's it. We don't have time to think about my feelings, think how I feel about this situation, or process it. It's always just go, 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 or do what we have to. So I think that's really good. Like, going into this new year, and like, we want to find success kind of in everything that we do. It all starts with that self leadership. And I think also knowing, also kind of giving yourself some of that grace to be able to, you got to keep your foot on the gas, but also know, it's okay if you need to stop at a rest stop and get yourself
Mhm.
together. And I think that's what people have noticed this year. It's like, we've been going so hard and so fast that you don't appreciate, kind of like you mentioned, living in the moment, living in the present. Like, we don't live in the present anymore. We're always thinking for the future or trying to get away from our past, things like that. So that's just really awesome. So yeah, thank you for that. That was just really good. knowledge that you dropped right there. Um, so as we're going forward, are you working on your next book? Are you kind of mentioning that? So would you like to give a little speak, maybe some accountability right now and put it out there, put it out? We can anticipate what's coming from you.
Yeah, man. I love what you said there about giving grace because life is going to happen. And my next book right now, the working title is Bookcasting: Why Every Author Should Have a Podcast and a Podcaster Should Have a Book. Because one of the greatest things you can do for yourself is to really be a content creator, making sure that you stay consistent. Like the, especially with the grace piece as well, in the self grace piece. Like you can't really expect your victories to come at Amazon Prime speed. You just can't expect that to happen, man, because
Man,
you think 2 days shipping, like, oh, my problems will be solved in 2 days if I just follow these 5, 7 simple steps. Like, nah, there's always a squiggly line coming at you. So, but then in 2021, my fourth book, and this will be the third solo project, is going to be all about book casting, publishing a book, starting a podcast, and doing both. Because one of the major things that a lot of people have done in 2020, especially once that April hit, is that all the microphones were sold out. You couldn't buy a
oh,
podcasting USB mic anywhere. They were sold out.
gone. Yes.
Yeah, and Apple iTunes actually hit 1 million podcasts in April. So even though it seems like everybody and their mom has a podcast nowadays, you can still start one and still put a dent in the universe if you go at it the right way and you stay consistent with it. Because a lot of people, they may think, oh, I'm going to start this podcast, going to get like 1,000 followers, and then you get in some of those Facebook groups of those communities, be like, all right, my first episode is up. I got like 17 downloads. Like, man, how to up my numbers? Like, how many episodes you got? I got like two. I'm like, man. Like, dude, like this is a marathon, dude. Like it's a
That is
freaking
so
marathon.
true. That is so true. And because people will treat it like a New Year's resolution where they'll start, kind of like you were saying, April, everybody couldn't find a microphone, couldn't find anything. And then, once people start going back to jobs and going back to work, you'll start to, it'll be the consistency that will have to carry you through. But I think you're absolutely right. That speaks to me because I want to write a book. I keep telling myself I'm going to write a book. Have I done it yet? No. But I know that's one of my hurdles is kind of getting over that imposter syndrome of just kicking my kind of sabotaging myself into like, okay, well, who am I to write a book? What would it be about? All of those different things. And, you know, kind of as fellow believers and Christians, like I know I can pray and be able to just kind of get the clarity that I need for what I want to write, what I want to say. I just need to do it. But I think that's just a good aspect of, as as you're joining into podcasting or you're looking to write a book, of being able just to be able to put yourself out there in different avenues. So that's really good.
Yeah, man. I know a book coach, man. If you need a recommendation, help get you butt in the gear, man. If you want to get that book out and join the biz of immortality, as I like to call it.
Awesome, awesome. I will take you up on that. I'll hit you up after this, and then so I kind of as we're closing out, um, what would you recommend, or what are your thoughts for people, people that are joining into this, speaking kind of your book and of, podcasting, and so many people are doing this. I think a lot of people kind of like that entrepreneurial spirit kind of rose up in people when all the jobs were kind of being shut down and people were still trying to find ways to supplement their income and to do other things. What advice would you give somebody that's kind of starting out, either in podcasting or wanting to write a book or public speaking? Like you have your certification and you're speaking. What would you give somebody that's wanting to start and kind of build a second income, because they know, if anything, the job could disappear at the drop of a hat? So, what would your advice be for somebody wanting to kind of take 2021 and be like, okay, I'm gonna make sure 2020 won't happen to my family again, where I lose my job and I'm depending on, you know, the stimulus check or unemployment benefits, and they kind of want to take their world by their own hands and kind of want to do that. So
Yeah, like a couple things came to mind. Funny enough, I wrote down one thing in a Google Doc yesterday. Going to drop that. Another thing, one of my past guests on the Going North podcast, she actually mentioned that job security is not income security. So focus on ways to make your income secure. And for those who want to start, the four words are prep, action, fun, and repeat. Prep, action, fun, and repeat. So when you're starting your podcast, prepare. And by preparing, I mean listening to other podcasts and seeing and hearing what they do and monitoring what they do, doing a couple books, like reading a couple books. Since mine isn't out yet, I'd recommend folks to pick up the book that John Lee Dumas published about, I think it was 6 years ago, maybe. Podcast launch. It's probably
mhm.
like 2.99 or 99 cents now, that ebook. That's probably one of the best books you can pick up on podcasting because he does a couple tutorial videos equipped with the ebook for it. And also listening to other podcasts, getting informed of looking at blogs and things like that. And when you prep, also not only seek to emulate the great, but also take action from it. Because one of the major things that you don't want to do is get a bunch of jewels in your pocket with no dollars to back it up, especially if you're a family man or family woman and you got to pay the bills and you got to really get out there and do what you got to do to survive. Like you have to take action. So prepare, take action. And as you keep going, have fun with it because to be honest, as a in ter- if in terms of sound quality for my own project, the Going North podcast, I feel like I haven't really hit my stride probably in totality since probably I'd say late 2019 was probably when I felt like I really hit my stride with both the sound quality aspect and the interviewing skills. Because when I started, all I had was these headphones and my smartphone. And that's the other thing too about action. You got to start with what you have.
Yeah.
Like with kind of like with hip hop, like folks who basically had nothing else and just said, you know what? I have a microphone and I'm a boombox. I'm gonna make the greatest thing ever. And it took the whole freaking world by storm. Like you have to start with
Yeah.
what you have and use that tenacity. Like with heck, even one of my coaches, one of his favorite speeches that he used to deliver when he first started speaking was how to act like a leader. Audacious, contagious, and tenacious. You got to be
Mhm.
audacious. You got to be contagious, like with the preparing and
I
the
like
action.
that.
You got to be audacious enough to prepare and take action. Once you take that action, you got to be contagious and keep going and be tenacious to keep going no matter what and have some fun too with it because there's a phrase like if you do what you love, you never have to work a day in your life. And that can be true to a certain degree because I try to have fun with what I'm doing with this as my side hustle right now. And I still have my day job as a librarian on top of this because at the end of the day, you have to repeat all of this when it's all said and done. So prepare,
Mhm.
take action, have fun while you're doing it, and then repeat. Because when you repeat certain actions in your life, they'll become habits. And then those habits will help you to become that prosperous man that you want to be.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's awesome. I really like that. So, and I like that. Just starting with where you are right now. Start with what you got. So, that's you got those headphones. That's why I got these. It's like,
Hmm.
you start where you are. And I think a lot of times that's the hang up for us is that we want things to be perfect before we get started. And that truly like that speaks to like that's just there's no faith in that and that you will keep going. If you just wait for everything to be perfect, you'll never get started. And it's like, start with where you are, start with what you got. I'm kind of doing the same thing. Like this is my side hustle, but I want to be committed to it. I want it to grow. I want to do all those great things, but I've got to, kind of put in the work and start with what I got. Do I got the greatest sure mic on the market? No, but I'm gonna take these headphones with this microphone that I got, and I'm gonna enjoy it. I'm gonna have fun, and kind of like you were saying, and you keep going. So I think that is awesome, and just as people are wanting to get into side hustles and be able to supplement their income. And, I love how you said that job security is not income security. That is, and I think that's what a lot of us realized this year. Job security is not income
Mm-hmm.
security. So you start your side hustle, start with where you are, commit what you can, but be disciplined in that. And you kind of keep it moving. Take the ups and the downs, but have fun. A lot of times that's an underrated thought of it, is to have fun along the way. Because we want everything to be work, work, work. Got to see the results, kind of like you're saying, got to make my podcast grow, got to get the numbers. And no, have some fun along the way. Celebrate a little bit, enjoy yourself, enjoy the ride. So that is awesome. So, all right. Thank you, thank you, thank you. You want to leave your socials or where everyone can follow you if they want to get in contact with you, Dom? If you'd like to hear more from Dom, I'm gonna let him speak and give his handles or where you can find him at, and I'll put all his information in the show notes. But yeah, we know you can. I'll give you a couple minutes. You want to have the floor, speak to what you got going on, and where people can follow you, find you if they want to reach out and get in touch with you.
Sure thing. So thanks a bunch for having me on, my man. I appreciate you. I'm always grateful for the opportunity to share what I got as well as others, because advancing others involves in advancing yourself. And when you advance others, that's how you advance yourself. And from the good ancient book, there's a particular scripture where it mentions how we are more than conquerors. The key word is more than conquerors. So head over to dombrightmon.com. And if you're looking to start a podcast this year, I have a free little ebook called The 21 Lessons Learned from 2+ Years of Podcasting. If you want to be more than a conqueror, pick up that ebook. Just leave your email. I'll give you 21 quick tips to help you grow, start, and expand and manage your podcast to new heights, and to really, heck, even it can even apply to your book too, because a lot of those tips also apply to what I've done with the book casting world, as well as just starting a business as well. So pick up that ebook on dombrightmon.com and subscribe to the Going North podcast to hear more greatness on top of what my man Leonard's got going on here today.
Awesome, awesome, awesome. So, all right. Thank you very much. That is for this episode of the Prosperous Man Podcast, and we will see you next time.